Out of time here, but I want us to talk about one more topic here. Well, there's a report from the Public Service Commission continuing to display evidence of skewed appointments. We know that in fact, they said that two ethnic communities are the leading, that is Kalenjin and Kikuyu. The Kikuyu and the Kalenjin communities topped the charts, classified as grossly overrepresented, meaning the numbers exceeded their recorded national size. A quarter followed closely by Kisi and Luo communities, termed as overrepresented. And Manzo, I'll start with you on this. Is this a problem of politics of ethnicity and exclusion, or is it a matter of the numbers in terms of probability? That the numbers, since the population is skewed towards people who are more majority, you're likely to find more of them appointed? Or is it just politics of ethnicity and exclusion? And how do you deal with such?
Yes, first I want to state this as a politics of ethnicity, and you know what has happened is that it has been skewed so that we have such numbers. We have statistics in this country, and we would have gone by, you know, it will be showing from the biggest community to the smallest community, the proportions and how they have participated and how they have been hired in government, so that we do not have a disadvantaged community in the country, and one which has taken a lion's share, including taking share of the smaller communities. Of course, the government employment, it should not be the main source of employment in this country. If we have industrialization going on and investments in the country, then many more people will be hired, you know, differently across the country, and there will be fairness in that manner. So it should not be everybody should not be looking to government, either county government or national government, for employment, but we should look at other opportunities and job creation in the country indiscriminately. Somebody has argued that even if you go to the mortuaries, you will find the same proportions, you know, of the death rates. But when it comes to employment, I think that, you know, those two communities have been longer in government and having strategic people in government, they have tended to take more shares from, or more positions from other smaller tribes. We should even be encouraging the smallest tribe in the country to shine and to participate in nation building just like the big tribes.
Okay. Trevor, I'll say,
yes.
Two things comes to mind. Of course, that report reminds us of what Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua himself said, that the government of the day is actually a company. They are shareholders into it. So we can't run away from that statement. It's unfortunate that now the report actually shows, yes, indeed, and somehow confirms what Dan Mahanzo is saying. Yes, there are population variations between the various ethnic communities. But I also know one of the realities in our country today is that if you are people from a certain region or a certain tribe seeking an opportunity in government, it becomes so difficult to get those opportunities because of the people who have been controlling these institutions or in charge of this institution over a long period of time. So I would say there is unconscious bias in giving Kenyans opportunities. Chances are very high that a Kikuyu or a Luo in charge of a certain institution looking at an application for coming from a Kikuyu or a Luo vis-a-vis a Turkana or a Pokot, the chances are very high that they will consider people from their ethnic grouping. And I think this mindset is also ingrained in Kenyans' mind. That's why you will hear things like, it's our time. This is our time to govern. The idea basically is that once we take over control of institutions of government, then we will be able to what? To favor our regions. Ondieki will tell you the reason why he is now running around South Nyanza trying to make it yellow is because he will say, you know, we want to bring development to our people. As if development is actually something you beg. It's your right. So I think unfortunately, it is ethnic, but it's also the character of our politics and also the character of the way in which we've been governed over a long period of time.
And not population, because we're talking about the big four tribes. It's a Kalenjin, Kikuyu, Kisi, and the Luo.
As I've said, population may be a factor, proportionately, yes. The most populous communities will always find themselves more popular, like Manzo said, you know, light touch. Even if you go to the mortuary, the morgue, you probably find many people from the most populous community in those morgues. But you need to look at the history of the governance of our country. Who has been in control of institutions, of government or departments in this country? And like I said, there is also that unconscious bias. Perhaps people do not mean to say that when I see an application from a Turkana or a Samburu or a Rendile, I will not consider it. But I think there's that unconscious bias that mutietu. Because that mutietu mentality is also in our politics. That's why, you know, in Luo Nyanza, for example, and I'm just poking on Ondieki, the 5 MPs use a very wrong narrative to say that we are associating the president because we want to bring development to our people. It's so wrong. Because, and that's the kind of politics we need to run away from. Development should be equitable. Okay. And like I was telling Ondieki yesterday, and unfortunately I was with him in another show yesterday, and I was telling Ondieki, when we did the 2010 Constitution, the 47 counties were deliberately, and we debated this a lot, because we looked at the Provinces and Districts Act of 1992. And so which is the easiest way to equitably develop Kenya? And that's why we compromised on the 47 counties, not because we wanted all those 47 countries, but we thought, let it be a conveyor belt, because we come from the background where, during KANU's time, we were told, kama huko KANU, hakuna maendeleo. So people were begging for bridges, people were begging. I mean, Loteia will tell him, me and him, we come from the northern, the Kenya of the north. For a long time, we used to, even our people now will call and tell you, habari ya Kenya. I mean, you're in Nairobi, they're in Kenya. So there was that disconnect. But because of that politics, historical politics, that's why reports like this one make a lot of sense, that, yes, appears
tribes still have.
Trevor, you ask a very good question, but you allow Daktari to take it out of context. In fact, you should advise Daktari, being a party leader, sometimes he needs to call his press conference to address some of these things. Because you asked a very good question on employment. And now he takes it back to different things. As the Honorable Manzo said it, it's true that the tribal groups, which are actually large numbers, will have the larger appearance. It's a matter of probability. Sometimes we allow probability to take course. Even if you take Royal Media, you will find that if you look at, this is a private entity. But you will find a Luo here, you will find a Luya here, you will find, depending on the population, you will find many Luos are here. And also depending on stations, you will find many ethnic groups. And this is not a government institution, this is a private institution. I also want to add that the situation of employment is not instantaneous. If the Public Service Commission gave a report, they gave a report of even people who are almost retiring. Ruto, the president of the day, William Ruto, came to power the other day. You cannot say that this government is the one that has skewed such kind of employment. That one defines that the systemic nature of our challenges that we have. So these are people who were employed long time ago. The statistics are given at different times. So you cannot just equate that to the current governance structure. And on my humble submission in respect of that, we need to look at more of how the government can facilitate employment opportunities instead of just creating it, because the government has no capacity to do that very quickly. Look at the number of people graduating from our institutions of higher learning, tertiary colleges, and the rest. The population graduating yearly is very high, but how many factories do we put in place yearly? How many universities do we build yearly? How many schools do we build yearly? The number of graduates coming out of our institutions are more than what we can absorb. And that is why I really find it, get worried when serious scholars and serious people fault the government by creating other opportunities outside the country, because we just don't have that natural capacity and even current capacity to employ all of them. So I am humbly seeking this, that there are certain people who have been given chances because of their disadvantage.
Give them passport first.
Yeah, disadvantaged people, you know, the marginalized community have always been taken care of. Even now we are going to take an NYS here. If you look at the requirements there, orphans and those who are disabled are given higher priority so that they can have opportunities which others may have not had. So this is a systemic problem and it cannot be associated with this current government. And I think that we can just be more honest when we are debating on such matters.
But then, true, you have a point there, but let's talk about Article 232 of the 2010 Constitution, which demands that the public service must be representative of the diverse Kenyan communities with adequate and equal opportunity in appointment, training, and growth at all levels of public service, not leaving behind persons with disabilities. How do you achieve that? especially the equal part?
You know, I think it should have not been equal, but it should be equity. There should be equity, because there can never be equality. There is only we can only get equity. Yeah. That is, if there is a group that is marginalized, they are given opportunity. Like initially, the Kenya Somalis were said to be marginalized. Now they are almost the ones who are getting the greatest opportunity, and they have it. So persons with disability are given opportunity. In fact, initially women are the ones who are marginalized until women got empowered more than men. In fact, now boy child is more threatened than girl child. So you realize that the current status of the country, just like the two-third gender rule in different sectors of government, it's really a difficult thing. It's not a mirage, but it's really difficult to achieve. Okay. Some of these things might not be perfectly achieved, but I believe that if systems and structures are well put in place, then they can be 95% or 97% achieved.
Deliberate policy.
It's not current government mistake.
Okay.
Yeah, so that opposition will start running around with it, Kalenjins and Luos and Kikuyus. No, but it is not this government. Trevor. This is a public service report which involves 6 years. Because somebody is employed, they stay in job for more than 30 years.
Trevor.
Yes.
You know, I wish I could do more shows with Ondieki so that we try to persuade him to just shift his mindset from this idea. Because you are associated with the government of the day, you just defend it blindly. Yeah. I think, the truth be told, there is a correlation between opportunities for all Kenyans and whoever is in charge of government. That is. Whether historically or not, it's a fact. And that's why you will hear people say, oh, it's our time. We want one of our own. Which is really a very misleading conception. Because it doesn't matter. Mheshimiwa here will tell you, his salary doesn't share his salary with all his constituents or even people from his clan. And the first beneficiaries of his salary are his immediate family members. Yeah. But there's this warped notion that when we have, say, Trevor Ombija, all the Luos now will be comfortable. I never see now, I don't see Kalenjins lining up in State House because William Ruto is the president. I never saw Kikuyus line up in State House because Uhuru Kenyatta was the president. So I think there is honestly that correlation. And I think the more we debate about this, so we can actually achieve the philosophy in Article 232 of the Constitution. There has to be, yes, I agree with Ondieki, equality is an ideal situation, but equity is something we can practice.
So when you were drafting the Constitution, how did you envision this? Did you think it would be cured by the counties only?
So I'll give you an example using Article 130, the National Executive. Yeah. When we were debating that article, we felt that historically, Kenyans were feeling that whoever comes in as president will overload the executive with his speech, even the nominations to parliament with his tribe, which was actually a fact. So we said, let's cure this. And that's how we came up with the idea of a cabinet of a maximum of 22. Remember that time, we had 44 tribes. I think when the Indian community was, or the Indian community came much later, before the Makonde and the rest. So the idea for us was, Kenya was in the cusp of renewal. Remember, we just came from the post-election violence of 2007, 2008. And we felt that because of this thing was traumatic, because I think the first time Kenyans, we saw experience such kind of magnitude of killing from our political process. So we felt the 22 cabinet positions will go to 22 different tribes. The next batch of appointment, which is the principal secretaries, will go to another different tribes in Kenya, so that you meet the national outlook. Yeah. Because read Article 130, what does it say? The cabinet must reflect the regional and ethnic diversity of the people of Kenya. Yeah. And that's the vision we had. And therefore, you really felt that we need to have, say, a leadership, a president, who will then look at Kenya and say, these are all my children. I don't want to be seen that I'm loading my tribe into the cabinet. Yeah. And that's why you see the question of, for example, how many Kalenjins are in cabinet, how many Kikuyus are in cabinet, it's an issue because Kenyans are feeling the executive is not really looking at all of us equitably.
Okay. Lotte,
all permanent secretaries are almost from one tribe.
Okay.
Yes, and CEOs of parastatals.
And CEOs of parastatals from one tribe.
Well, I cannot say more than what the other panelists have said in terms of the report. Yeah. But to agree to it that the report has actually brought to light some of the things that Kenyans need to look at. And I agree totally that the reports talk about the Kikuyus and the Kalenjins being the majority, followed by the Luos and the Luyas, the Kisis. Yeah. If you look at the Luos and the Kisis, they actually form close to the opposition, and basically they are still in government. And if you look at the Kalenjins and the Kikuyus, they are the majority, they are in government. So it basically means that it cuts across both the ruling and the opposition. That is for a fact. And if you look again at the census, the population of these particular 4 communities are also the majority in terms of numbers. So for me, it is a little bit fair, apart from the fact that Article 232 of the Constitution needs to be looked at. And I think this has come for, and the president needs to look at the report. I will not say that this was formed overnight. It actually has been building up over a period of time. Yeah. What Ndieke said and what Aukota said, Dr. Akura Aukota said, is that now it is upon the government, the executive, and I think the President William Ruto is very keen to this. He actually said that during the recruitment of the military, they'll take them from the NYS. Yeah. And you look at the recruitment of the NYS, it actually captures a lot of things, including persons with disabilities, including the minority. That basically means we're already transitioning. The president is looking at that Article 232 of the Constitution, and I'll ask the executive. It's my appeal to everybody that makes decisions in terms of employment to look at the smaller tribes who might not even make it to the percentages. I looked at the initial report before this one. There's a community that only had one person in the civil society, in the civil service, telling you that this community will continually be marginalized. So those that have decisions power, please can you look at those ones? It is my appeal, and I think it's the appeal of the president to them as well, that as much as politics are built over time, the Article 232 needs to be looked at, and especially with the fact of this
there's another important point, maybe Manzo can comment on this. Yes.
Now,
I think it's also the nature of how we do our politics. If, for example, you look at the way we want to form government, actually the question of coalitions, maybe we can speak about this another time, coalitions. So because I know I have support from a certain region and a certain tribe and a certain party, that also informs how people are given opportunities in. If you look at go back to the debate about chief administrative secretaries, we were told, these are people who supported my campaign into getting politics. So there's also that angle of the manner in which we do our politics. If I seek the support of Lotte, Ndieke here, then their natural outlook will be, once I get into government, nipatie watu kadhaa. Nipatie watu kadhaa. So obvious. No, it's not obvious because it's not a good thing. It's obvious, but it's not a good thing. Because then it makes it difficult for you to see a government serving all of us equitably. It's like you must favor a certain region that supported you, which is not, for me, it's not a good thing.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for making time this morning. Honorable Dan Manzo, Senator of Makueni, Honorable Titus Lotte, Member of Parliament Kacheliba, Dr. Kuro Court, Leader Third Way Alliance, and Ken Ndieke, UDA Coordinator South Nyanza. Thank you very much for making time this morning. And that has been the State of the Nation. Coming up next is Cooking Tips. Bye for now.